Well, today marks 35 years since Hurricane Hugo hit the Carolinas. Around midnight on September 22nd, 1989, the storm made landfall near Charleston and moved into Charlotte as a Category 1 hurricane with 90-mile-per-hour winds. Hugo is blamed for at least 49 deaths and cost an estimated $7 billion in damage. Our Larry Sprinkle was on air as the storm came through earlier this week. He talked with Brad Panovich about that experience.
And I've said, we've had wind gusts here of about 80, 85 miles an hour. And off to my left, I was facing the camera this way, I could hear a noise. Oh, I could hear this explosion in the studio. Looked over and the ceiling caved in.
Holy cow.
So what happened was a power line at the top of the tower next to the building that snapped, hit the roof and came through the ceiling.
Hugo was a big storm for Charlotte. I think anyone who lived here during that time in 1989 really still talks about it, talks about how scary it was. Actually, when we were out at Festival in the Park on Friday, we had some viewers that passed by our booth talking about, how comforting it was to have Larry during that experience. And it still actually impacts us even here to this day, especially on the east side of Charlotte. They lost so many oak trees because Hugo was more of a wind experience for Charlotte. It moved so quickly. And of course, because we had those sustained winds of hurricane force, we lost a lot of trees, and a lot of people had power not for weeks because, of course, of all the power lines snapping too. So if you were here during September 1989, you certainly remember it. Hugo began on September 10th as a tropical wave that had just emerged off the coast of Africa, met its peak intensity as a Category 5 with winds over 160 miles per hour. That was on September 15th. So then just before midnight on this date, September 22nd, made landfall near Sullivan's Island. If you're familiar with the Charleston area, very popular tourist destination. And of course, those Category 4 hurricane intensity winds right around midnight quickly came through. And again, it was the quick forward speed why Charlotte, of course, had such strong winds. Anytime you have a storm that moves that quickly, it just doesn't weaken over land enough. So we had 90-mile-per-hour winds here in the Queen City. However, even up toward Hickory, winds gusting close to about 81 miles per hour, Category 1 hurricane strength. So keep that in mind. Hurricane all the way into parts of Catawba County and even parts of the mountains saw gusts close to about 70, which is just below Category 1 hurricane strength. And again, it was the quick move of Hugo, which is why it was more of a wind event for Charlotte rather than a rain event for Charlotte. Now, of course, we have to get a check on the tropics. It is Hugo's anniversary. Now, there is nothing to that strength brewing anytime soon. However, we are going to see a few areas of interest the next few days. This one shaded in yellow, a non-issue, a low area. And then we have a new spot here that we talked a little bit about yesterday, has yet to emerge off the coast of Africa. That's the one shaded in orange. But all eyes are really on the system that is expected to develop in the Western Caribbean and eventually move into the Gulf of Mexico over the next few. Now, the National Hurricane Center has upgraded this to a 70% chance of development. I mentioned this yesterday. It is going to develop into something. The question mark is exactly where the low forms and then how strong whatever develops could be. I do think that we're going to see some indirect impacts from this just because of, similar to Francine, as the storm moves onshore and inland, wherever it does so, that expansive moisture across the deep south is looking to happen really no matter where the storm goes. So what I want you to do now is just prepare for the fact that by the latter half of this week, we could have more cloud cover and even some locally heavy rain. But even before we get toward next weekend, which if we saw those indirect impacts, that's when they would arrive, we're going to see higher rain chances over the next few days, not because of any kind of tropical moisture, but because of an approaching cold front. So while we were dry for the most part yesterday, we're dry again today, we will see those increasing rain chances throughout the upcoming week. So if you put the umbrella away, now is the time to go ahead and grab it. No rain out there on radar right now. And again, we are going to stay dry throughout the afternoon with really a few clouds heading into tomorrow morning. And again, that chance for patchy fog and light drizzle. But as we go through the day on Monday, you'll notice storms returning. And then we look ahead toward Tuesday and those storms could get even more abundant. Your brunch forecast for this afternoon, again, sunshine abundant. We're hitting around 90 degrees, but it'll feel like the mid 90s. We'll talk a lot more about that potential for rain and kind of how we get indirect impacts from the tropics, all coming up in the next half hour.